Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to look at why you should practice your carb load and how to do so. Now carb loading I've talked about in previous videos, in blogs, in my ebooks, but it's something I really think you should do before your marathon. It makes a huge difference and I've personally seen a huge benefit from this as well, as have my clients. So looking at the carb load, we want to make sure we're trying this a few days before our marathon. Obviously this should be really important, but we want to make sure that we're not doing anything new on race day or in race week either. So before a long 20-mile run or before your big 20-mile race potentially you're doing, before your marathon, try out your carb load. Now, carb loading for the race may be 2 to 3 days, so you might want to scale that back in training just so you haven't got the extra expense, or if you're trying to look at your weight at the time, make sure you're not overdoing the calories unnecessarily. The key thing with this is stomach trialing, making sure that your body can handle those carbohydrates, figuring out how you can best eat. So, what food you like, the time and the frequency, how you're going to fit that really into your day, because this is usually going to cover maybe a Thursday and a Friday, or certainly a Friday. So how are you going to fit that in around what is going to presumably be a work day or potentially a travel day? So thinking about all those things, trying at the timings and what's going to work really well for you can make your marathon way, way less stressful. It's one less thing to think about because you've tried it and you know it works. Now, carb loading, if you're making any changes or you're doing your first carb load, it's really important that you try this out. So what I would say is if you're doing a 20 miler, try it out. If you're doing a big 20-mile race, absolutely try this out. But be on the safe side, you could potentially, and again, I can't recommend this obviously, but you could potentially take something like Imodium just to settle your stomach, or do just a very, very, a slightly lower grade carb load, or just a 1 day carb load coming into it, just to not take too much risk. What I'd say if you're doing it as a training run though, and especially if you're doing your first carb load and maybe not doing a race, stay close to home just in case you do need to nip in, and make it an easy run. Don't try and do this where you're then going to punt out a really big, hard, massive session. We don't want to interfere with those huge ones. So maybe do it before an 18 miler if you're going to 20 miles in your top end weeks. Do this 4 to 6 weeks before you really race, before you need to do it for the marathon. Try it in a slightly less important run. So that if it does go wrong, and you do absolutely have to stop because you can't continue on, then there's not too much of a big loss. It's not going to kick in really, in all honesty, until later in the run anyway. That said, if you can do it if you do need to come back indoors, nip to the toilet, try and then get back out if you can, unless it's really uncomfortable. Try and get those miles done so we're not missing out the training. The carb load shouldn't impact your training negatively, and obviously shouldn't negatively impact your race either. But that's why we practice the carb load in the first place. So you can do this before your big races, say before 20 miler for maybe a day or two, depending on how long you're planning to carb load for. Personally, I do a 2 day carb load, have done all pretty much all the time when I've done my marathons. So I would do this before my 20-mile race or before a 20-mile big, big long one in the weeks leading up to it, just to double check. So far, I've done this for probably 5 or 6 of my marathons, and I have tweaked every little time just a little bit, either adding more carbohydrate or just tweaking the foods I have to play around with the protein and fat content, and also the salt content as well to help my fluid levels. So there's loads of little things you can do, but each time you make an iterative change, just practice it. Even if you've done carbos tons of times, it's still worth just trying out before a bigger race or before a longer run in the final weeks, just to make sure that you have no problems whatsoever, and you can make sure that you're confident, you feel good, and you feel really, really optimal and really confident for your long run and your races, most importantly of all. Because we don't want anything else to distract us. We just want to get the best performance we possibly can. Give your carb load a practice and see you soon.